Good day, beloved. I had an experience that ushered me into the first heaven up to the 10th heavens. I saw the secrets and the things each of this yuvens. I want to share all that I saw, and I pray your audience stay through to know the secrets of this heavens. This understanding really helped me to see life from another perspective, and it reveals to me mysteries that govern the earth. And also, I got to understand the right answer to many tough Bible questions that for years can't be solved. I was alone in the house, with no one to talk to and nothing pressing to do. I remembered vividly that day. I wasn't worried about anything. I just wanted to rest. I remember lying down on my bed, thinking I'd just relax for a bit. My mind was calm, my body still. Then I drifted off to sleep. But this was not like any other sleep. It was deep, heavy, and different. I don't remember dreaming, but I remember suddenly becoming aware that something had changed around me. I opened my eyes. There, standing at the head of my bed, were two men. But they weren't like any men I had ever seen. They were tall, so tall in fact that I don't even know how to describe it. Their faces were glowing, bright like the sun. Their eyes were like fire, alive, powerful. Their clothes had colors I can't name, full of light and movement. And their wings, yes, they had wings, shone brighter than gold. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to speak, but fear held my mouth closed. My heart pounded. My hands felt cold. I could feel something holy in the room, something beyond me, beyond anything I'd known before. Then they called me by my name, and when I heard them speak, something in me stirred. Their voices weren't loud, but they carried power. I felt it in my bones. I didn't know what to say. I was afraid. I could feel my face lose color. My heart was racing. I had never felt so small in my life. Then, one of them spoke again. He said my name. He told me not to be afraid. He said the eternal God had sent them. And then he said something that made my whole body go still. You must come with us today, he said. I didn't ask questions. I didn't argue. Somehow, deep inside, I knew I had to go. Then, without a sound, they spread their wings. I didn't even feel my feet leave the ground. It was like the air itself had lifted me up. We rose slowly at first, then faster, higher, until the earth began to fade beneath us. Clouds passed by like soft white shadows. The sky around us changed color. Blue, then silver, then something I can't describe. The wind didn't blow, yet I could feel movement, like riding light itself. Their wings burned like fire, but not with smoke or heat. It was a living flame, warm and strong, wrapping around me but never burning. I felt safe, though I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that the earth was far below me now. When we stopped rising, the air around us was no longer the sky I knew. We had entered a place that felt too wide, too deep to explain. I looked around and realized we were no longer in the world of men. The clouds below looked like a blanket, far away now. And above me, stretching out in every direction, was a sea. But this was no ordinary sea. It moved without waves, smooth and endless, shining with light. It was greater than any ocean I had seen on earth. Deep, wide, and alive. It seemed to hum like it had a voice, though I could not understand it. The angels called it the first heaven. Then I was shown something even more surprising. I saw rulers, elders of the stars, standing in glory. Around them were many angels, their wings wide and strong, flying with great speed. I was told they ruled the movements of the stars and watched over the heavens. They didn't speak, but I could feel their power and order, like everything in the sky moved by their command. Then the angels who brought me turned my eyes to another wonder. I saw what they called the treasure houses, great storehouses where snow was kept. Next, they showed me the treasure house of the dew. It sparkled like oil, soft and shining. It smelled sweet, like flowers in bloom. I saw how it was held and how it was sent to the earth. Everything had order. Nothing was random. Clouds moved in and out of hidden gates, each one guided by angels. I saw how rain was stored, how mist was held back, and how wind followed paths like rivers in the sky. I realized then, what we see on earth is only a small part. Behind every drop of rain, behind every star in the sky, there are hands. There is purpose. And in the first heaven, I had only seen the beginning. The two shining ones took me higher still, past the sea of the first heaven, into the second heaven, a place I was not ready for. As we entered, everything around me changed. The light faded. The warmth was gone. This was not like night on earth. It was a deeper kind of darkness, thick and full of sorrow. There was no sun, no moon, not even a star to comfort the eyes, only a cold, endless shadow. Then I began to hear sounds, faint at first, then clearer, weeping, moaning, cries that came from every side, never stopping, full of pain. I turned and saw them, figures hanging in the air, bound and unable to move. They were not like the angels who had carried me. These were prisoners. They looked broken, full of regret. I saw their faces twisted with sadness, their eyes empty, as if the light had left their souls long ago. I asked the two men with me, "Who are these? Why are they here?" They answered, "These are the ones who turned away from God. They knew his ways but chose their own. They followed their prince instead of the truth." I was told that their prince, the leader of their fall, was now bound in the fifth heaven, and these here followed him long ago. They did not fall by accident. They made their choice. They were once part of the heavenly order, but they left their place and brought darkness with them. When the angels carried me upward again, we broke through the darkness of the second heaven, and at once I felt warmth returning as we entered the third heaven. It was a garden, but not like any garden on earth. This place was full of beauty that words cannot explain. Trees stretched high above me, their leaves glowing with colors I had never seen. The angels told me, "This is Eden, the place between what is corruptible and what is not." In the center stood a tree unlike all others. It was tall and wide, its leaves shining like golden fire, red like bright embers but soft as sunlight. The angels said, "This is the tree of life. The Lord rests here when he comes into paradise." Its beauty was too much for my eyes, and its presence made my legs weak. It felt alive, not just with power, but with a kind of holiness that made everything around it bow. Then they showed me the roots of the tree. It stretched down deep to the end of the earth. From beneath it, 4 rivers sprang out. They didn't rush like earthly rivers. They flowed calmly and quietly, as if they were thinking. 2 were like honey and milk. 1 was oil. Another was wine. They divided gently into 4 paths, spreading across Eden and then down to the world below. The angels who had been guiding me did not pause in their journey. The sky above began to take on a new color, brighter and filled with a kind of energy I could almost feel in my bones. The 4th heaven was different. It was not like the peaceful Garden of Eden, nor the terrifying darkness I had seen in the 2nd. Here, the light was alive, moving in intricate patterns, circles within circles, all revolving in perfect harmony. I saw the sun, its light more intense than anything I had ever witnessed on earth. But the sun here was not like the one that rises and sets each day. This sun was eternal, its light never fading, never resting. As I looked closer, I noticed that the sun's wheel was not alone. Around it, countless angels moved in perfect synchrony, attending to its movements. They did not rest, never stopping their work as they kept the great wheel turning. These angels were radiant, their bodies shining with the fire of the sun itself, yet they remained calm and unburned. They worked in silence, watching over the sun's path with reverence and awe, as if each movement held great significance. The angels continued to lead me through the heavens, their wings spreading wide as we moved higher, rising through realms that seemed to hold secrets beyond comprehension. As we reached the 5th heaven, the atmosphere changed once again. The brightness that had marked the previous heavens faded, replaced by a heavy stillness. The air here felt thick, almost oppressive, as though the very weight of what had happened in this place hung in the air. I looked around and saw the giants. They stood tall, their figures towering over me. Their eyes were cold, and their faces, though human in form, seemed distant, as if they were looking through me rather than at me. Their bodies were withered, their features harsh, as though time had not been kind to them. The giants were silent, and their silence was unnerving. I felt a deep sorrow radiating from them, as if they had long since lost any sense of purpose or joy. They stood motionless, unmoving, their faces locked in a permanent expression of melancholy. "What are these beings?" I asked the angel beside me, my voice trembling with a mix of curiosity and fear. "These are the Watchers," the angel replied, his voice soft but firm. "Once they were great and powerful, chosen by God to watch over the earth and guide humanity, but they turned away from their purpose." I felt a chill creep down my spine as the weight of the angel's words settled in. These giants, once tasked with watching over the world, had failed in their duty. Instead of remaining faithful to the Creator, they had turned to their own desires, and in doing so, they had broken the laws of heaven. They betrayed the trust given to them, the angel continued, his eyes never leaving the fallen beings. Their leader was the prince, the one who led them astray. I followed the angel's gaze to the center of the giants. There, standing apart from the others, was one who seemed to exude a dark presence. His eyes were sharp, his gaze piercing, and his posture, though still, was one of authority. This was the prince, the one who had fallen from grace, the one who had betrayed the light. His name is Azazel, the angel said, and as the name left his lips, I could feel a dark energy that seemed to surround the figure. He was the one who led them to sin. He rejected the light, and because of his rebellion, he brought lawlessness into the world. I felt the weight of the moment, the sadness, the bitterness of what had happened. These once great beings who were supposed to protect and guide had instead chosen to follow Azazel. They had turned away from God's will, and as a result, they had brought chaos and corruption into the world. Their lawlessness had been passed down, their disobedience, setting a dangerous precedent. I looked back at the giants, their silence now feeling like a mournful dirge. They had given up their place in heaven, choosing to follow the path of rebellion, and in doing so they had forged the birth of lawlessness. Their actions had rippled through time, affecting the world and all who came after them. How did it begin? I asked quietly, my voice almost lost in the weight of the moment. The angel's gaze softened, but his words were stern. It began when they saw the daughters of men, and their hearts were led astray. They took wives for themselves, defiling the earth with their deeds. Their sin gave birth to giants, creatures of violence and chaos. The world became corrupted, and from that corruption, the seed of lawlessness was sown. As the angel spoke, I understood. The fallen watchers, led by Azazel, had defiled creation itself. Their actions had brought violence, destruction, and sin into the world, an act that would forever alter the course of history. And now they were here, trapped in the fifth heaven, their punishment a reflection of the consequences of their rebellion. As we ascended further, the atmosphere around us seemed to shimmer with an almost tangible energy. The air grew brighter, and I could feel the presence of something far greater than anything I had experienced before. The sixth heaven was unlike any realm I had seen. It was a place of pure order, a cosmic harmony that resonated through every part of creation. The angels who resided here were unlike any I had encountered before. 7 bands of radiant beings stood before me, their figures glowing with a light so intense it seemed to transform the very air around them. Their bodies were bright, so bright that I had to shield my eyes. They were beautiful, their forms majestic, and their presence was both awe-inspiring and humbling. They moved with a grace that seemed to bend the very fabric of time and space. These are the 7 bands of angels, the guide explained, his voice barely audible over the overwhelming light. They are the keepers of the order of the cosmos. They are entrusted with the care and maintenance of the heavens, the earth, and all that lies between. Their task, the angel continued, is to observe the movement of time and the seasons. They watch over the heavens, ensuring that the stars and planets stay in their designated places. Each season, each cycle, each rotation of the earth is measured by their hands. Their voices guide the rhythms of the universe. There is more to their work than you can see, the guide said. Their songs are what give life to the earth. They sing praises that resonate through the universe, and these songs are what keep the world in motion. Their songs are not just for beauty, the angel explained. They are songs of order, of creation. Without them, the earth would fall into disarray. The wind would cease to blow, the sun would stop rising, and time would falter. Their songs hold everything together. I closed my eyes for a moment, allowing myself to feel the depth of the music around me. It was a hum, a vibration, a harmony that resonated throughout the heavens and the earth. I could sense the pulse of the universe, steady and unbroken, and I knew that these angels were the ones who kept it all in motion. Where glory begins. The journey upward had been long, but as we reached the 7th heaven, something changed. There was a shift in the atmosphere, a profound feeling of awe that wrapped around me like a blanket. Here, at the threshold of the throne of God, I could sense a presence that was both terrifying and wonderful, something beyond comprehension. This was the place where glory truly began. The sky above was no longer just light, it was glory itself, burning and radiant with a brilliance that I could not have understood in my earthly form. It was a light so pure, so vibrant, that it seemed to emanate from the very core of existence. And within this overwhelming light, I saw the highest beings of all, thrones, cherubim, and the 9 regiments of angels. They stood, arrayed in their vast numbers, surrounding the throne of God, their faces glowing with a radiance that rivaled the sun. Each angel, each being, was more magnificent than anything I could have imagined. Their presence exuded an indescribable power, a calm yet fierce glory that made me tremble inside. The thrones, so majestic and towering, held a sense of unshakable authority. They were the foundation of the heavenly courts, the seats from which God's rule was exercised over all creation. The cherubim, those mighty beings with eyes all over their bodies, looked as if they had witnessed the beginning and would witness the end. Their gaze was penetrating, and as I passed by them, I could feel their watchful eyes, each one holding secrets of the universe. And there, in the heart of this unending brilliance, I saw him, the Lord, sitting on his high throne, surrounded by the burning fire of his glory. His face was unseeable, for no mortal could look upon him and survive, but the light that radiated from him was enough to tell me everything I needed to know. His power was infinite, his presence all-encompassing. And in that moment, I understood. I understood why everything in creation existed. The heavens, the earth, the stars, all of it had a purpose, and that purpose was to reflect his glory. And as I looked around, I realized that I was not alone. The thrones, cherubim, and the 9 regiments of angels were all watching. They were waiting, watching with great expectation for something beyond my understanding. I could feel the anticipation hanging in the air like a cloud. The glory of the Lord was not simply something to be seen, it was something to be experienced. The journey did not stop. After passing through the awe-inspiring 7th heaven, the 2 beings who guided me continued their ascent, taking me higher still. I had already witnessed the wonders beyond comprehension, but the further I went, the more unimaginable it all became. We reached the 8th heaven, a realm that seemed to hum with an almost musical vibration. And in this place, I learned of the movers of seasons, beings whose purpose was to shift the cycles of time and weather. They were not angels in the traditional sense, but ancient beings who moved the earth in rhythms known only to the stars. These movers had control over the very elements of creation. They determined the seasons, the change of day to night, and the eternal dance of time. Each movement they made affected everything, every tree, every animal, every human. They were guardians of the earth's cycles, the ones who made sure that the flow of life would never be interrupted, never stalled. Without them, there would be no rhythm, no order, only chaos. Beyond the 8th heaven lay the 9th, an even more extraordinary place. Here, the layers of the heavens were unveiled to me in ways I could never have imagined. The 9th heaven was a place of such profound beauty and mystery that it defied description. The layers above the heavens were not simply realms stacked one upon another, as I had first thought, but were deeply intertwined with one another, connected in ways that only the highest of beings could understand. These layers were the unseen threads that bound all creation together, the forces that governed the stars, the planets, and even the most minute particles of existence. I could see the realms shift like the pages of an ancient book, turning with the passage of time. These were the realms that held the deep mysteries of the universe, the secrets of the stars, the unknown movements of the heavens, the mysteries of the universe that had been kept hidden for eons. In these layers, the very fabric of reality was being woven and unraveled, day by day, hour by hour, in ways I could not begin to fathom. The final leg of my journey brought me to the 10th heaven, a realm so far beyond anything I had ever imagined that words failed to capture its majesty. We ascended higher than I had thought possible, the heavens stretching out before me like an endless sea of light, until we reached a place where the very air seemed to hum with divine power. And then, there it was, the throne. But not a throne of earthly design, not a throne built from stone or crafted by human hands. This throne was unlike anything I had ever seen. It was not made of matter, but existed as something pure and eternal. It shimmered with an incomprehensible light, a radiance that pierced through the very fabric of the heavens. The throne seemed to float in the air, not resting on any surface, but held in place by the unshakable force of God's will. I knew at once that this was not a place for any mortal to sit, for it was the seat of the Creator himself. The space around it was vast, and yet there was an undeniable presence, a force that made everything else seem insignificant in comparison. As I stood before the throne, I could feel the overwhelming power of the Lord's glory surrounding me. His presence was unlike anything I had ever experienced, a living, breathing fire that consumed everything in its path. It was as though the very air was alive with his power, crackling with energy that I could barely comprehend. The Lord sat upon his throne, his appearance like molten iron, glowing with the fire of the sun. His face was indescribable, an unapproachable light that filled the space around him, radiating a burning glory that was both beautiful and terrifying. I could see his face, yet it was not like the face of any being I had ever known. It was as though his form was both radiant and hidden at once, a blaze of light that filled every corner of existence. His eyes were like burning flames, and his voice, though gentle, resonated with the weight of eternity. The burning glory of the Lord consumed everything around me. Yet somehow I felt no harm, only awe. The glory of the Lord was so pure, so intense, that it felt as though my soul itself would be consumed by it if I dared to look too long. The light was unspeakable, beyond the understanding of any mortal being. It was not a light that could be seen with the eyes alone, but one that filled the very heart and mind. It was as though the light itself was alive, speaking to me without words, showing me the depths of God's holiness and power. As I stood there, I realized that I was in the presence of the Eternal, the One who has no beginning and no end. His light was the source of all light, the power that held the universe together. And I, a mere mortal, had been allowed to come before him, to stand in the very place where angels and archangels would bow in worship. Endless praise filled the air, a chorus of voices from all around the throne. The sound was like the most beautiful music I had ever heard, though it had no shape or form. It was not something that could be heard with the ears alone, but something that resonated in my very soul. The praises of countless beings filled the space, flowing from every corner of the heavens, a continual song of worship and adoration for the Creator. The glory of God was not something to be understood, only revered. It was a power beyond measure, a force that consumed everything in its path, and yet it was gentle enough to allow me to stand in its presence. I felt small, insignificant, yet deeply loved, in a way that I could never have imagined. There before the throne of the Lord, I understood the truth that no words could ever express. The light, the glory, the eternal praise, they were all reflections of the holiness of God, and I, a mere mortal, had been allowed to witness it. And in that moment, I realized that the greatest truth of all was not in the sights I had seen or the wonders I had witnessed. It was in the presence of the Lord himself, the one who created all things, who existed outside of time and space, and whose glory would never fade. I had been in his presence, and nothing would ever be the same again. Then, as if summoned by the will of the Lord, the archangel Michael stepped forward, his presence radiant and serene. With hands that held both authority and compassion, he took the sweet ointment given by the Lord, anointed me, and I felt the power of eternity itself wash over me. The fragrance of the ointment was indescribable, far more beautiful than any scent I had ever known. It was not just a smell. It was the very essence of eternity, of life that knew no beginning and no end. It was the scent of heaven itself, a fragrance that seemed to transcend time and space, filling my senses with peace and joy. As Michael anointed me, I felt a deep change within me. The transformation was not only external but internal. I was being clothed in something far greater than earthly garments, something that transcended the physical world and bound me to the eternal. As the ointment soaked into my being, I felt myself becoming something else, something greater than I had ever imagined. My earthly form, the one I had known all my life, seemed to dissolve in the light of the Lord's glory. I could no longer feel the limitations of my body, the weight of the world I had once carried. Instead, I felt light, like I was part of the very heavens themselves. I looked down at my hands, and they were no longer the same. The skin that had once been weak and flawed now shone with the brightness of the stars. I looked up at the angelic beings around me, and I realized something profound. I had become like them, no longer just a mortal, but something that reflected the glory of the heavens. I had become one with the heavenly host, part of a world beyond comprehension, a being who stood in the presence of the Creator, ready to serve and worship for all eternity. The transformation was complete, and I knew in my very soul that I would never be the same again. I was now one of them, one of the eternal ones, forever marked by the Lord's glory. As I stood in the radiance of the Lord's presence, I felt something shift within me, a stillness that settled over my heart like a wave. The angels around me, those who had accompanied me on this divine journey, became silent, and the great glory that enveloped me seemed to pull away just enough to make space for the voice of God. The voice was not loud, but it echoed in the deepest parts of my soul, a voice that carried the weight of eternity. It was firm and unyielding, yet full of compassion. "Janet," he called my name, "it is not yet your time to remain here. I send you back to the earth, for the work I have for you is not yet finished." Immediately I came back to myself in my room.